thank you, folks that are here and folks that will be joining us, and folks that are watching this after the fact. This is the third celebration of the Divine Feminist Anthology, a poetry and art collection by women and non-binary folks that was published by Get Fresh Books this spring. This collection is a pandemic baby in all of the best ways, and we've had the chance to highlight and really celebrate all of the poetry and the poets that are in the book. However, I think what makes this book extraordinary, right, are the artists and their pieces in the work. As we all know, art is a language. Art is the ultimate communicator of the human experience. Sometimes in a more elevated way, I think, than poetry or literature can be. So I really wanted to honor all of the art in this fantastic book, and just remind folks that the book is for sale at the Get Fresh Books website at the store. All proceeds of the anthology are going to the Pink Door Retreat, which supports writers and creators that are of color and LGBTQ experience and non-men. So every copy that you purchase goes to helping a minority creator do their thing and become fantastic and share their vision with the world. So I'm going to start by thanking all of the artists, the ones that are here, as well as the ones in the book that couldn't today, but whose work is phenomenal as well. And just talk a little bit about what inspired the particular pieces. I mean, I can tell you why I picked the particular pieces in the for the anthology, but I wanted to hear from the artists themselves. What was the process like of creating the particular work? And if you can talk a little bit about how your practice of art making, how that is a sacred sort of thing for you, how it's a feminist practice as well. So our first artist that we're going to talk about, or talk to rather, is Luisa Pinzon. Luisa, I'm going to read your bio. I'm going to read all your bios, and then I'm just going to let you
Oh
take
my
it
goodness.
away. So you don't have to, say a whole thing. But
Thank you.
you're welcome. Luisa is a Colombian-born photographer and photojournalist. Um, Practicing photojournalism for the Bolivian Times in Bolivia and the Star Ledger in USA. She operates LFP Vision Art Services, and her new endeavors include a full-time art career with an art internship at Index Art Center. Is You want to update your bio for us a little bit and tell us where you're at and what you
Yeah,
do?
I feel like, oh, things have changed a little bit. Um, I mean, I'm still working out of Newark, but I've got a new studio at Project for Empty Space,
Nice.
which I'm really excited. I'm pretty new, but I'm surrounded by, amazing artists, which makes a big difference. It's nice to collaborate and be inspired, by one another. And to kind of talk a little bit about what you were saying about the human experience, that's really why I got into photography. To me, capturing the human experience, archiving our history, and just sort of like the path that I've taken. The images that you picked were both taken in Colombia, so they're definitely very dear to me. One of them, this one is she's called Cartagenera, so it's a part of the coast, which is known for having a lot of Afro-Colombian culture, which is a big part of the Colombian experience as well. And the other piece, she's a neighbor from my grandmother's house, and she was very sweet old lady that actually gave me shelter because we got caught in the rain while I was walking to town. So she gave me shelter because we were hiding under like a tree and that wasn't safe. She brought me into her home and told me her history, and that's the portrait that came out of that. So I love that picture. I love both actually,
I do
but that's
too. I As soon as I saw these two portraits, I knew that they had to be included in the anthology. Not only because they were such powerful representations of women, but it's powerful representations of women that you don't see in everyday media, right? You don't see Afro Latinx women represented.
Hmm.
You don't see older women, right, represented in media. So they were not only gorgeous and beautiful, but to me, they were the portraits, the faces of divine femininity, right? They both exude this sort of power and this. I mean, obviously, you can talk more about this, right? These are your pieces, but for me, I knew right away that they needed to find a home in this anthology, as sort of the patron saints of it in a way. But can you talk a little bit about what your artistic practice is, or your process, and how it is sacred to you, how it is feminist?
Absolutely. To talk a little bit about the beauty in these women that we don't see, especially in Colombia. Women in Colombia have this thing where they're supposed to be perfect. They need to have the perfect body, perfect breast, perfect butt. There's surgery. Unfortunately, is a big part of like women in Colombia, and they start very young because there's a certain look that they're going for. And unfortunately, at 15, kids are already trying to do their breasts because they think they need to look a certain way. So I'm trying to, whenever I visit Colombia, I try to capture the real beauty in women. I mean, I think we're beautiful no matter what, with surgery and with not, without. A lot of women in my family have gone that way, and I respect that. But I like the natural beauty, how they carry themselves. They're both such beautiful smiles. I just saw it and I'm like, I love being able to be in that moment, being the little fly in the corner that I'm able to see that. So I think that's what's special to me, that I'm able to see it and I could capture it whenever I can. It doesn't always work out, but these two I think were really important.
They
And now like my practice is actually a little bit different, which was inspired by Danielle, if I can say that. Um, working with her and seeing how she works with resin and puts his pieces together, it kind of ventured me to try it as well. So I'm doing, something a little bit different. I'm, I'm still haven't shown them yet, but they always will include photography. But now I can put other pieces that I always wanted to put as part of my work. I always sort of buy little things wherever I go, and I wanted to keep them and put them in artwork somehow because it tells more of the story of wherever I visited, what was in my past again, whether it's a material or a person. So I think now resin is kind of being able to give me that where I can put it all together and also have photography be the main source, but just adding other pieces to it. So I'm still working on it. Hopefully, with this new studio, I can get more into it. We'll see.
Yes, I'm so excited to see it. And that was going to be my follow-up question. What are you working on in the new studio? But you just answered that. Um, Thank you, and keep us posted. And thank you for your work in the anthology. Like I said, these are the santas, right, in this anthology. And I really love them. And I thank you for sharing them with me.
Thank
Um,
you for selecting them. I mean, you picked them. I love the fact that you love these two pieces. Thank you.
they selected themselves. Like I saw these portraits, and I was just like, I don't know these women, but I feel like they know me and they know this project, right? And that's the beauty and the power of women, right? Especially what's not celebrated enough, especially with women of color, right? So thank you, Luisa. So we're gonna jump to Luisa's, the person that inspired Luisa as well. And they're obviously, art colleagues, Danielle Scott. So let me just stop sharing, and I'll open up now Danielle. So Danielle has two pieces in the anthology, but I'm just going to show one and then I'll show another one with sort of with my just holding up from the anthology. But this is Danielle's piece, and I am going to read Danielle's biography. Danielle Scott is a soft-spoken artist who uses her work as a conduit to explore bold, fearless, thought-provoking work, which draws its inspiration largely from her journey and life experience. She's a mixed media assemblage artist, and her work expresses politically and socially charged messaging. She has work in the Newark Museum. She has work at the Montclair Museum. She is on fire. And Danielle, do you want to talk about what inspired these pieces, and then what your art practice is like, and then just let us know what your journey is looking like this year.
This particular piece was actually inspired by Luisa, because Luisa had a show called This Is America, and I was working with American flags and trying to figure out ways in which I can use them, and not just the typical way. I'm sorry, I got a cat in front of me. Go. Not, like a typical way of using them. So during the time of this show, actually, was when Trump had the ban, the travel ban, and the travel ban was against Muslims going in and out. So there was that big thing with that. And there was also this thing with Trump where he didn't understand why Muslim women had to wear a hijab. So my thought was I needed to do something or say something very strong with using the flag and also the hijab. So during National Hijab Day, I had one of my students actually put the hijab on this doll, and she helped me make the suit. So I think Luis is probably the only one that knows, or actually Marina, you might know, but there is inside the lynch the head of Trump. So he kind of tucked into there. People can't see him, but they can. So this particular piece was just dealing with women's rights, our femininity, who we are in this world. So at the top of the piece, you see those little pink pins. So that represents the Women's March and the pink pussy hats. So that's in the work as well. You also have, there's script on here in different languages, just inviting people to like really, really look at it. So there's Hebrew on there. I'm trying to think of what else that I put on there. There is, I don't know the exact term for the dialect of Muslim people, or the so that's on there as well. And this particular piece, actually, I want to say, because of Luisa, was the first piece I really sold out, like really, really sold. Luisa called me one day and she was just like, listen, there's a guy that's interested in your piece. And I was like, what piece? And it was this one. And when I saw the guy, I was just like, kind of like confused, because he didn't look like the typical guy to purchase something like this. And he's like, I really want to know about this piece. So I actually stayed on the phone with this 6'3" lawyer for about an hour discussing the piece. And he was like, I want the piece. So he loved the work. And from that point, I knew that, the work that I was questioning and the work that I was fearing putting out there, I needed to continue to do it. So that's a part of my process now. My process is, when I question myself, I have to really sit back and say, you know what, just do it. Don't be afraid to do it. And I always share the story of when I went home to Cuba. So when I went home to Cuba for the Havana Biennial, my whole process changed. And I went there 2 days after I started my residency at SCAF. And, Ben Jones gave me an assignment. He's like, be here, be with the work, be with the people, and learn who you are as an Afro-Cuban artist. And I saw myself there. I saw flags, I saw targets, I saw bullet shells. I also saw artists, men and women, creating with no boundaries whatsoever. And that's what I'm like pushing to do each day. So when I create a piece, it's, you can't just create these cute pieces, these beautiful pieces that of course they will sell. Create pieces that are thought-provoking, create pieces that are going to cause some controversy, create pieces that are going to tell a story, and now with my, my new series that I'm working on or completing, it's all about telling the times, and I believe strongly in what Nina Simone said. Our duty is to do that. And that's what I'm going to do until I'm not on this planet anymore, which is to tell the times in my work and not be fearful of putting it out there. Because what I'm learning or what I'm seeing is this particular work, the way I'm creating the assemblage pieces with the resins, the bullet shells, is actually catching everyone's eye more so than my oil paintings. I'm a trained oil painter. You know, so my process has totally changed. Luisa was the first person to curate my work ever in Newark. So it started with oil paintings. And then from the oil paintings, I just gradually grew into these assemblage pieces because I do love assembling things. I love sculpture. So I do go out once a week. Part of my process, most people don't know, once a week, I give myself a thrift day. And I go out, I go thrifting, and I try to find one item that I can just put in a container on my shelves in my studio that I know that I will put into my work. So that's a part of it. Like, so that's where the doll came from. She was thrifted and she sat in my studio for about 2 years. And then when I saw the open call for Luisa's show, the little girl kind of spoke to me and was like, okay, use me now. I'm ready. So, and then thank you, Marina, for having her in here. It made sense. And the day that the book came out was the day that we received our female vice president. And it was just amazing that this was a part of that same day that she was put into office, you know?
Absolutely. This doll, this figure, right? Not only I think is fearless, and which all of your work is. I feel like your work is so fucking fearless, where you make everybody uncomfortable with your work in the best way, right? That it challenges and helps us to really think outside of the box. And you know, the reality is, you know, this is America, right? This is an American woman, right? And this is a vision or a view or a representation of America that we also don't get to see, right? That doesn't get celebrated, that doesn't get honored. And when I saw that, I said, this is the you know, these are the dolls, the toys, the images we need to tangle with in our everyday life, right? We need to not only reconcile with our past, right, as Americans, right, in our participation in all parts of that past, but honor what the future, you know, American president will look like. And it will, you know, be, you know, from our mouth to the goddess's ears, right, will be a woman of color with a hijab on, right, and, you know, and a really dope pantsuit. But, you know, thank you for your work, and thank you for letting her live within these pages as well. Update us on your shows and everything that's coming up with you.
So I'm a part of an opening at the Newark Museum, which is the NJ Annual. The NJ Annual right now has 45 artists in it. It was about 800 artists who submitted their work, and they narrowed it down to 45. So one of my first pieces where I used my spent gunshot shells is in the show. It is a very small piece. It's not big. It's kind of heavy. It was part of my Heavy and Loaded series. Again, Luisa curated my first solo exhibition at Index in Newark, and that was one of my first ever pieces during my residency when I came back home from Cuba. Was a little tiny piece called "Oh my God, is this all we're made of?" And it's actually a silhouette of a young boy, and his whole body is filled with spent gunshot shells or bullet shells. And then there's a target, but the target in the center is made out of a spatula. And then also his face has a spatula. So I try to use little items in there. The reason why its title is This All We're Made Of, because it's inspired, of course, by my children. I have a son who will be 20 and I have a son who will be 5, both children of color, of mixed, you know, background. And with dealing with my son and having to have those hard stories about him walking out into this world and feeling like a target, or he has a target on his back, a target on his chest. You know, I don't want my children to feel like, is this all we're made of? Are we just standing here so we can be shot and fill the bullet shells, empty bullet shells? You know, like then we just end up on the floor as this empty shell. Our body just becomes nothing because we're seen as nothing, as if we have no character, no content of who we are. So that's where that piece came from, and that's in Newark Museum. The Montclair Museum, I'm doing the festival for Juneteenth, so they are showcasing 4 of my pieces. 3 of those are from Heavy and Loaded. 2 of them are from an older series. July, I have 2 opening shows in Bayonne at the Bridge Street Art Gallery. I'm a part of a show called Be the Light. The series I'm doing is actually a softer series. It's these little girls that I'm working on. Very, very soft. And it's, again, inspired by my daughter. I'm a mother of 3. They're complete. So that show opens July 11th. And then I'm in a show called This Is America Again. That is in Milwaukee. So my large flag is being shipped, and then my blue doll that was in the show that Luisa curated is going to Milwaukee tomorrow. So those are kind of what I have going on.
Fantastic. That's all amazing. You know, I know we've talked about this in the past, but you know, I knew you were gonna skyrocket. You know, a year ago today, I think we've had this type of conversation, right? And I told you were gonna skyrocket, and now you're in the atmosphere, and it's amazing and beautiful and far above everything else. So congratulations, Danielle, and thank you. Thank you for letting the doll live within these pages as well.
Yes.
So let me stop sharing here. And let me bring up Marta Paulina's piece. So, you know, I think the most wonderful thing about this is that we all know each other, and we're all inspired by each other. I think we can all say that. And Marta is also a poet as well as an artist, like me. So I really resonate with her work. And you know, I hope she continues to share it, not just on this platform, but you know, on many others. So Marta Paulina was born in Poland and immigrated to Newark, New Jersey with her parents and two siblings at 11. Marta now lives in Union, New Jersey, while pursuing her passion for yoga, art, and writing. And I'm going to ask Marta and all the artists to put their, you know, social media information in the chat, so that way later on, you know, folks can find out how to contact you. But this is Marta's piece. And Marta, do you want to talk a little bit about what inspired this piece, what inspires your process, and where you find the sacred in your everyday?
Sure. So I never really know where my art starts because I have so many different interests where I love movement, just body movement. And I always find that when my mind is clear, when I finish yoga or meditation, lines like this, just scribbling, doodling, really helps me, one, to calm my nervous system down. I tend to get very overstimulated, especially now with everything that goes on. And this art just helps me to calm down, where I just also, music has a lot to do with it as well. You know, movement, the rhythm, it just, everything seems to fit. And I also take photography, and photography, it's, to me, it's all about finding the right lines, finding the abstract in the natural. And yeah, this is where I just, I get my inspiration from all around, but mostly this art is really me taking back my time, taking back my body, you know, taking ownership of all that I am. And, you know, people always ask me, like, how long did you sit? Like, how long did it take you to do this? And I don't keep track of time. To me, it's, again, it's just a revolution. And, you know, I don't have to have a specific amount of time that I'm doing this. I'm just doing it because that's what feels right now. But yeah.
That's amazing. I was looking for the work in the book to look at yourself, to look at it myself. But I think what I loved the most about this piece was that it read to me like a roadmap to the body and to the divine self, right? And I think that's what a lot of your work does, from what, you know, I've seen. It feels like they're sort of like these mandalas, right? But really deconstructed, where it doesn't feel so. I think the thing with mandala art for me tends to be it feels very organized and neat, and I don't like organized and neat. I like chaos, clearly, right? Chaos and sort of wild forms. So when I saw this, I'm like, if there if there is a divine feminist soul, it looks like this, right? It's diagrammed like this, right? If there is a roadmap for the sacred, it takes these twists and turns. I love this, and I love recognize where there is no growth, right? Because so much stops us from growing. And I feel like art is the seed, right? And the soil and what keeps us growing and moving. So I really loved it. It fit perfectly in, and especially in next to and in conversation with your piece, right? Which was about moving, which was about growing, which was about sort of bursting out, right? And I feel like that's what your artwork does. It bursts out in this really lovely, beautiful, controlled but wild way. It's a very it's like you said, you find the abstract in the natural, and I see that. I see a lot of floral work. I see a lot of natural work in these pieces of yours. So I want to thank you for letting me include that. And do you want to share, what's coming up next for you, what you're working on, where we can find you, where you're posting your work?
Sure. So I post most of my work on Instagram. I found that medium to be like so accessible to me. I do share a lot on my stories, and I do a lot of my yoga there. But right now I'm just literally getting out of this pandemic mindset where I'm taking my time, just like I do with my art. Like I'm not rushing into anything. It's this process of getting out of the capitalistic rat's race was really, it's honestly, it started for me long before the pandemic. And I feel like now with everything that happened, I just really want to take my time. I look through all my drawings and my poetry, and I'm just trying to get it into a cohesive piece. So we'll see.
That's amazing. Yes. Thank you for promoting, slowing down and resting, and rest as a part of the process. We definitely don't do that shit enough. I certainly know I don't, but I'm also trying to sort of slow my body down and give my time, my body space, and really try to, dissolve this illusion that time needs to control us, where instead we just need to focus on what we do with our time, right, instead of what it does to us. So thank you, Marta. Keep sharing your work, please, and please put your IG information in the chat as well. Our next artist is Meredith Whitefield. And I just want to share Meredith's piece, which is super powerful. Meredith, I think I asked you, right, to submit. I reached out to you, yeah. And then when you sent this, I was like fucking blown away. The first time I saw Meredith's work was at Lillian Ribeiro's studio, which was Lips. And I remember just standing in front. I forgot what it was called. Was it the Wonder Woman show?
It was a Wonder Woman show. It was selfies. It was about selfies.
Yes,
it was actually like the last time I've actually really made stuff other than for this. So yeah.
Selfie memes, right? And it was all these images of you used images from childhood, and you really turned the meme idea on its head. And it was bewildering, and it was amazing, and it was honestly, it was my favorite part of the show. And I was just like, oh, I can't wait to see what she sends. And then you send this bomb, right? And I'm just like, well, I feel completely vulnerable and exposed. But do you want to talk a little bit about what inspired this piece, what inspires your artistic practice, where you find the sacred?
Yeah. Well, this was definitely, there was this call, and I was like, I need to make something because everyone has said already, like, we all went into this really weird space during the lockdown, right? And like, for me, I had like the week of the lockdown, I lost my job. I worked for 5 years at a international humanitarian organization. So like, my job was like looking at images of like war, disaster, famine, like violence against women, really just awful things. And so I laughed because I leave this job, like we broke up with each other. It was very toxic and like all encompassing, and like holidays, and I was just working all the time, and we'd be first to market if there was crisis in the world, and it was really intense. And so then the lockdown happened. So I was in a weird wonderful place because I was like, I just let go of this really toxic thing. And I also just came out of this place where like, I know that like, we're going to be okay because I've been dealing with this work around the Syrian refugee crisis, what was going on in Yemen, South Sudan, you know, the girls in Nigeria, you know, the Rohingya, like all around the world, looking at and just like seeing stories of resilience and seeing stories of just like powerful women just rebuilding from nothing. And I'm like, we've got this. Like, we totally have this. Like, I'm not worried. I don't have a job. I'm home with my kids. So I could be here for my kids. I have 3 kids. They're all little, you know, and I was their person and their whole world shifted. And like, but at the same time, they were just leaving that stage of like, my youngest was 3, right? Like he finished nursing that earlier that year. So like now all of a sudden he's like grabbing my boobs again, but at the same time I'm shedding old identities. And then like, they're like nuzzling up against me and I'm like losing control of my body right in a moment where I felt like I was regaining control of my body after making tiny humans for a decade, you know? And so here's this thing. And like the third one, I had 3 C-sections. The third one, you know, like I have this like wicked scar. I think it's just like women that I've talked to, like after the 3rd time you were like cut open for whatever reason in that area, like it comes out, you have a wicked scar. And so I felt like very deformed, like somehow just like, I was just like, this is like a different body. I'm a new person. I'm like shedding all these skins. Who am I? And so it's just like, and the title of the piece here is Order of Importance, because like at the same time, I'm like also reconnecting with my own sexuality again. And I'm like, I'm a woman in my 40s. Like, I feel really powerful. I feel really in my body. Like I've made humans with them. I've raised humans, you know, like I'm like, I just have this like powerful, like goddess energy, right? That I'm like, I've done the things. I've like done the marriage. I've done the divorce. I bought the house, you know, like I've done the things. And like, so who is this person that has come out from that? And of course, for, you know, it was a time that we all had to slow down and like really spend time thinking about this, and I had a lot of time to think about this, you know? And so for me, it was like this order of importance. Like I was regaining my sexuality, but I still had this like mother wound, because it was a kind of a wound. Like motherhood is a bit of a wound, you know, like you think you know what you're doing despite whatever relationships you had with your own mothers in your own lives, you know. And for me, it was like a weirdly traumatizing event, you know, like I did not expect that to happen at all. At the same time, you know, folks say I'm pretty good at it. So like, you know, shockingly, even though I didn't have a great representation in front of me, you know, and so like there's these wounds that are around motherhood that we don't expect when we're going through that journey, you know, that like pop up, you know, all of a sudden your kid's 10 and he's going through this moment. And you're like, oh my God, you know, and you're 10 again and like reliving that same moment. And you're like, how am I doing this? You know? So then it's just like moving up to the body. And then like, you know, now I'm just like, for a while again, like my youngest, he was 3 nature, grabbing at my tits again. And I'm like, but they're my tits. And he was like, my boobies. And I'm like, but they're my tits. And they're like, my boobies. And it's like this, like, you know, semantic issue in your brain. You're like, but how do I sort of reconcile these things? And then finally, I'm like, oh yeah, you know, like the brain, you know, and it's like where it all sort of comes together. And so that's sort of, you know, how I sort of came together with this image. And I've never done anything like this before. And it was really vulnerable and revealing for me. And so like, that was a really big piece of it too, was just the making, right? Like saying, I'm going to be vulnerable with my body and I'm going to put it out there. Because the other thing with it is that if you've tried your entire life never to have children and then you allow yourself to have children, it's just really just mind fuck, really. Like you've been trying to stop the thing and now you're like, I'm doing this thing, right? So my entire life, like I'm a tiny white blonde lady and like I attract a lot of attention towards me, and like I never wanted it, right? Like as a sexualized object, as people just project stuff on me, and I always never wanted it. And I was sort of like recoiled from that attention, like baggy clothes and like no makeup and like never drew attention to myself. And so now at this place where I'm like, no, like look at me, that I have a body, like look at what it's done, look at what is. And so it's this also, I'm going through this process of like, no, like I'm feeling my power and how to feel that in my body. Like I'm still really awkward at it, to be totally honest. Because some days I'm like, yeah, look at me. And then other days I'm like, don't look at me, you know? So I'm still sort of struggling with that and like getting into that power. So a lot of that was in this image for me, and, you know, still going through that process, still, you know, getting back. And, but like big, just major mind shifts that are occurring, you know, during that time. And I think a lot of women experienced it because we were thrown back into spaces we thought we'd long since passed, you know, and taken on very domestic, you know, roles that I was like, but, you know, like I do the things and I teach the classes and I have the big jobs. And now I'm like, no, I cook meals and I sweep floors and, I do the things, I do all the domestic things, the things that I've always railed against, and I'm like, now I do the things, and that's my job. That's my job. That's my job. And I'm like, and it's a great job, but like at the same time, it's my job. And so like just reconciling that too, of like identity in this moment, so.
I feel all of that energy here, and it's all encapsulating this very tight form. But I love what you said. It starts in the mind, and that is exactly what our eyes are drawn to, and then it's like the body sort of becomes this altar, right? And I love that the mother wound is front and center, right? Because the reality is, a lot of women are mothers, right? Whether we came to that role begrudgingly or whether we came to it willingly, whether we still fight it, or don't. But I love that the body is an altar here in this piece, and it's very much celebrated. The female bodied person is very much celebrated, and it's symbolic. This piece is so symbolic in very sort of essentialist way, but I kind of like that. I like the celebration of femininity. I love the sort of like laying yourself all out there. I mean, if that's not what being a mother is, I don't know what it is, right? And I think this piece celebrates all that, celebrates motherhood, but also drawing attention to the woman's body still as a site of sexuality, as a site of sexiness, despite this mother wound, despite what being this vessel. So and then the title was beautiful too, Word of Importance, because ultimately we're important, right? Us. Nothing happens without us, right? So I love that it's celebrated that, and I love that I celebrate this piece. Do you want to tell us about where you're at, or what where your art's at, what you're doing, any fun life stuff?
Currently trying to like figure out how not to get this ice cream guy to come over. Really, really creepy. He like, it gets creepy at the end with the hellos.
The hellos,
really,
yeah.
The super creepy one. But yeah, no, I mean, we're still in that state of transition, right? Like, just figuring out what the next steps are. And for me, it was because of, I am here with all the kids and doing the things, and I've been doing a lot of just community organizing, and like, because I think part of it too was finding my voice, right? And being like, I have something that I can say because I have stuff to, like, I have the experience now, right? Like, I feel like maybe it's because I'm in my 40s and I feel empowered because of that. Like, I can say stuff, and what I have to say is valid because I have the experience. And so like, I'm bringing that out to the community and just really trying to, work within that space. But then I turned a lot towards writing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm moving away from the visual and I'm working more towards the words right now. And so, because I've been turning inward, right?
I love that.
And just trying to like make sense of all of it in that way. Because for some reason I'm like pushing away from photography.
Listen, it's the process is what it is. And I love that. And I hope, you share your words with us, on some level, or however you do it. Throw your social media stuff in the chat so everyone can contact you. And thank you so much, Meredith, for your work and for sharing yourself. Share. So our next artist is Janet Morgan, and I met Janet and was introduced to Janet's work through Artfront Galleries, where I had some shows there myself. Janet was part of I believe it was wasn't it called Divine Feminist too?
Yes. We said, can we please use that title? It's just so fabulous. And then we expanded it out from your stuff, which is highly Catholic, to we had all different kinds of religions and non-religions. And it was a really fun show. It was a
wonderful show. And I was really drawn to your work because I find it not only super visceral, but very, I mean, it's, my understanding of your work is on a very spiritual level, right? I feel like that's what it tries to tap into. But this particular work, right, was fierce and feral and sexy and it was it was the the goddess I wanted, to sort of, walk with us or carry us through the anthology. So Janet Morgan has been artist in residence in Death Valley National Park, Weir Farm National Historic Site, the Babayan Cultural Center in Cappadocia, Turkey, Hanksville Elementary School in Utah, and the Luminous Bodies Residency in Toronto. Her large paintings have been featured on stage at the Omega's Women and Power Conference, at Burning Man, and at the Parliament of World Religions. And I'm going to have Janet put her website in the chat. But Janet, talk to us about this piece, what inspires you, what your process is like for art making, and how you tap into the sacred or the divine.
Thanks. I have a lot of different kinds of work, but the main branch of it has always been this very, as you say, visceral and very physical depiction of figures. I don't really like the word figures, that seems so disembodied. And I've done a series of almost 200 deities, some of which male, female, made up, traditional. And this one sort of reminds me of Durga, the Hindu goddess Durga, who was given all the weapons of the gods because they created a demon who was uncontrollable by man. So she had to do it. That's what I was about. And it's also a big piece. It's almost 7 feet tall, this piece. And I love it myself because it's one of those pieces that after I did it, I went, I did that. I mean, it's just kind of like, it blew me away too. So sometimes you look back at your own work and go, how did I ever have the energy to do that? It's like, you have to pat yourself on the back. So it's made out of 2 pieces of paper that are 40 inches high, and so it gets framed in 2 pieces. But I love this one because it's very much about trying to take that wildness and that fierceness and make friends with it, use it, let it help you, all that stuff. And I think we women really need to say yes to those kind of natures to us. Yeah.
And talk if you can just talk a little bit about what your process is like. Has it changed since the pandemic? Do you find that you're doing different work now, or just kind of getting back into work? How's your process been?
Actually, the pandemic's been really interesting because I live in Brooklyn and don't have a car, so going out into nature and drawing has become really, really important. And then last summer, we finally started getting back on the subway and went out to Coney Island, and it just became our refuge, right? And for most of the time we were out there. Now it's like back to normal craziness, right? But when we were out there, it was basically like homeless people. If I was homeless, I'd be at Coney Island, right? And locals and a couple other misfits and stuff out there drawing. And he had this really wonderful interface between the ocean, the incredible power of the ocean, sky, and all stuff, and then all this, the great history of Coney Island, which has always welcomed misfits and freaks and women who are like sexy as all hell and whatever, it's like, it's always been so inclusive of all different kinds of people, and there's this wonderful history of burning down and resurrecting again like a phoenix. And actually the new roller coaster that just opened is called the Phoenix. So we were doing all that, and then I found out that Brooklyn Waterfront Artists Coalition is having a Coney Island show this summer. So I wrote to them first, to the curator, and said, if you're doing that, you have to have so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, because these people have been doing serious Coney Island art for 50, 60 years. So I've been sort of helping her form that show. And we're going to do things like have figure drawing with real mermaids, stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
I saw the mermaid parade's coming back, right?
Yeah, mermaid parade's coming back. Yeah, so it's this real kind of wonderful celebration of wildness and craziness, and also just the environment down there. For some reason, it's my Reiki person insists that part of Atlantis is Coney Island, but this definitely has some crazy magic to it, right? And a really, really wild history. The more you get into the history, the crazier and crazier it is. Sure. And there's another show going on at the same time at BO Workshop, which I'm also in, which is called Art Over Time, which is for artists 65 and older. I'm 66 now. And the funny thing for me about this show is I have one piece, and then they said, well, you make a piece for the, like a writing for the wall with 3 other pieces, and then 200 words to describe your entire life. You know,
Oh,
which is
no
like,
problem. Right.
I can't even like abbreviate anything in
Right.
200 words, which was really, really funny.
But that's wonderful. This piece for sure, like I said, it spoke to me, and I feel like, you know, it's towards the end, because I feel like, you know, the anthology sort of takes, you know, this piece harnessed all the energy from the anthology and kind of moved, you know, all the goddess and all the creative energy forward. And you said it, you know, wild. You kept saying wild, right, in your description, and I, you know, that was my first feeling and my first sentiment with this work was, I'm like, this is one of the goddesses. This is the wild, right, part of the anthology. And you know, this big cat and this goddess really harnessed that. So thank you for sharing that. And I want to see this work really.
Yeah,
Like,
it's big.
But put all your information in the chat so that we're aware of, you know, I mean, I follow you, but so that everyone else can follow you, and we can, you know, come see you in Coney Island, because that does sound really amazing.
And can I say one thing to Meredith?
Yes.
Her photograph reminded me that, you know, the ancient goddesses that are like 12, 13,000 years old, that are they're like very bulbous and rotund. Someone suggested that they were self-portraits, because when you look down at yourself, that's what you look like. So that's what her photograph reminded me of.
That's very interesting. Yes, actually, I'm gonna look at that later.
Next time you're in the bathtub, it's like,
yeah, yeah. We definitely don't look at ourselves enough, I think.
Yeah.
Just really quickly, I just want to interject, because like when I first became a mother, I got really interested in like the intersection of art and motherhood, and like read all the books and looked at all the pictures and read the essays and stuff. And what I found was really interesting was that perspective of women, either like that were illustrators or like painters or stuff, that would like put mirrors below them or like above them and take like from like awkward angles, right? Because like your body does weird shit, right? And like you want to capture that, but like curators wouldn't pick it up because it wasn't a beautiful version of a woman's body, right? Like the angles made us look mushy or just like wrong, or the perspectives were not right, or like, you know, but we're interested in experience our bodies in these ways. And like, but the art world just didn't create a space for it. Well, so like, so wonderful that we have this. So thank you, Marina, for creating this for us.
You're welcome.
Absolutely.
Women and non-binary folks and you know, have been left out of art history forever, right? So I think we're only starting to reclaim that this century in a really real way. So absolutely, I want to see more pictures of bodies and bellies and all of that. And scars, right? Mother wound. I feel like you have a whole series there, Meredith. Run with it. Even if it's words. But thank you, Janet. I appreciate you and appreciate your work. Let me stop share here. And last but not least, because two of our artists, I don't know if they had technical difficulties, but one is in Portugal. Her name is Lilian Ribeiro. You can check out her work. You can check out Queen Moore's work, and you can check out Doris Casoilu's work in the anthology, which is for sale up at Get Fresh Books. All proceeds are going to the Pink Door Retreat, a creative writing retreat space for non-men folks of color and LGBTQ experience. And so like I was saying, last but not least, we have Maria Estrela, who is our cover artist. You know, I've looked at this, you know, Maria's Grows on Me painting probably every day for this past year and a half, right? Since she submitted it. And Maria, remind me, how did this happen? How did we connect?
So I saw was a call in Lilian Ribeiro page. She posted in Instagram, and I said, oh my God, I have to send work because I have so much work, you know, feminine work and work with women of color. And I never heard about, you know, I knew your name. I saw you, you know, like in the social media, but we personally didn't met. So I sent it to you.
Okay.
And was a late call. I was late to send it, and you said, yeah, sure, I can take it. So it was fine. You did that. Yeah.
You did. And you sent 3 submissions, and I saw this one and I was like, holy, I'm gonna keep it PG, right? Because this is going for Facebook. But holy moly, like this is the cover. This is my cover. This is the cover in the anthology. This is it, right? This silhouette, this beautiful portrait of, you know, and I don't even think I know Maria, it's a woman, but you know, of this beautiful goddess being. You know, I saw it and I showed it to Roberto, our publisher, and he loved it as well. And I was like, okay, that's it. I have my cover. But Rose on Me is one of those paintings that I never I never fail to be taken back by. I love the darkness of it. I love the very intentional placing of the flowers. I love the celebration of womanhood in this very simplistic, very primal way. And I'll let you talk about it, Maria. What inspired the piece? What inspires your art practice? How, you know, you find the sacred in your art practice? And but yeah, I can talk about this piece forever, but I want to give you the room.
Yeah. So yeah, so this piece was inspired, was not really in a good way. You know, I have a discussion with a friend and I came home and I was really upset. I was like having all this anxiety and I was mad for what this friend told me. And I was like, I don't want to feel this way. You know, I want to try to, you know, shift these feelings for something a little bit more positive. So sometimes it's hard for us to do that and we kind of like banging a lot. So I kind of like, you know, what I'm gonna do. So I decided creating, but I didn't know what to create. And then this image really came to my head, and I started like getting to my studio and start this collage. And then when I finished, I really didn't know what I was doing until I completed. And then I would look at it and I said, oh my God, this is me. So I'm growing on this, you know, this is like coming from the darkness, but I still can come and be this, you know, this woman that gets up every day and go to work and do things and be a mom and take care of my patients. So I said, you know what, I'm going to continue growing every day and I'm not going to let, you know, a bad feeling or something bad to happen to me, like affect me emotionally. I'm going to take that as a lesson and as experience. And I'm going to just move on and do what I'm doing every day, you know, to inspire other people, inspire other women, especially Black and women of color. And I purposely put the Black there because it's just like, you know, Black woman. And sometimes we come from dark times, but we always try to succeed, you know, we always try to make the best of it, you know. So that's what it's this process of this work came. And you know, I'm really excited that you really chose this for the cover. And I was like, oh my God, really was a good moment. And yeah, so with this I have a collection of these pieces that I have, like big pieces and small, that I came from like different shapes, different colors, because we all come in different shapes and colors. And you know, so it's a little bit of that, celebrating women from different cultures, different, you know, all of that. So yeah.
And I love it. She, you know, I'm gonna say she is the goddess of the pandemic. She literally got me through, you know, all of this works got me through. Putting this collection together was a lifesaver in so many ways, because whenever I was looking for a little bit of light, like you said, right, in these dark times, I was able to find it, and she was one of the beacons, right. And I love, you know, that we are celebrating first and foremost, right, Black women, right, which, never get celebrated, especially in art, especially in, around the world, in our times. I did not read your bio, so I'm going to go ahead and read bio, and then I want you to talk about all of your projects coming up and the very amazing exhibit that we are celebrating tomorrow on Juneteenth. Maria Estrela is a collage mixed media artist born in Cascais, Portugal, raised in a large extended family from Cape Verde, and settled in Newark, New Jersey in 2002, where she attended the Newark School of the Arts in 2008, where she was further able to develop, explore, and broaden her interest in digital photography. As we can see, that has grown and developed into so many mediums. I've seen, a range of your works now, and they're all fascinating. If you haven't seen Maria's piece, the tribute to her mother, it's probably one of the most spectacular art pieces I've seen in a room after light hits it. It's super amazing. But Maria, tell us about this exhibit you're curating and all of your projects.
Thank you, Marina. So I'm curating a Black Lives Matter exhibit. I'm co-curating with Carol Jackson's, and it's going to be in West Orange Arts Council. The opening reception is tomorrow from 4 to 7, so you all welcome to come. It's really a powerful exhibit. We have work from like people creating since last year, from this year. I have a piece there too that I created during the pandemic. So it's really, really a great show. I hope you guys can come. And after this, I'm really gonna take a break. I need a vacation, I need a break. I need to kind of just focus a little bit in myself. And I really resonate with Marta, because, sometimes we try to do so much and we just need to kind of like, that's it, I'm just gonna focus a little bit on myself. I want to come up with new work too, so I want to kind of take a break and then try to come something new for the fall. And that's what I'm doing now, just a show from the Black Lives Matter. It's gonna be up until July 31st, and then from there I just gonna go on vacation for a while. That's it. Yeah.
Yes. Let's hear it for resting girl summer, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
I know it could be hot girl summer too, but I think, rested girl summer, right, is also something that we need, especially for all of you who are here, who, and all of the artists and all the poets in this anthology who've worked so hard through such complicated and, difficult and strenuous times to create amazing works, to really be able to bear witness to all the crazy shit that the world throws at us, but that we're able to receive and take and make and create beautiful things from. So I want to thank all of you for this amazing talk, for sharing this awesome, it's been an hour of just riveting conversation about process and really a look behind these works. Again, shout out to all of you in the anthology and all of your beautiful work. The anthology is available at Get Fresh Books. Again, all proceeds go to Pink Door Retreat. Thank you to all the artists today. Thank you for all the poets who are in the anthology. Get some rest. Have a wonderful weekend. Again, thank you for your beautiful, beautiful work and for allowing me to collect it and share it with the world. You all inspire me every day in so many ways. And I look forward to all of your new work and to seeing all of this amazing stuff that's happening. Good night, everybody. And thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.